I just want to acknowledge in our presence, we have Justice Zone Ntaba, we have our colleagues from the police, we have colleagues from Ombudsman, from the Independent Complaints Commission, from Malawi Human Rights Commission. We have Gender and Justice Partners, Gender and Justice Unit Partners. We have government officials. We have representatives of international organizations. We also have some partners from grassroots for just Gender and Justice Unit, and then we have our friends from the social media.
Good morning. My name is Ngwampula Nundwe. I am from the Anti-Corruption Bureau. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Zone Ntaba and I work for the High Court in Zomba. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Philip Chinkokwe from Media Council of Malawi.
Morning. I'm Tandi Zompuyo from Center for Human Rights and Rehabilitation, CHRR.
Good morning. I'm Abe Mwenewanda from Malawi Widows Association. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Sandy Kadiwa Emmanuel from Barefoot Law, Uganda. Thank you.
Precious Kumbani, The Nation newspaper.
Good morning. My name is Elijah Alumbani Mkandawire. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for MHub. Thank you.
Rosala Chibwana, I'm from Gender and Justice Unit.
Emma Kalea Shikwenembe, Gender and Justice Unit.
I'm Mwenejo Ganyenji from the Gender and Justice Unit.
Good morning, my name is Tembi Tadzi from Gelifect, Zato.
Good morning, I'm Tamanda Muhango from Girls Empowerment Network, Malawi, Unit.
Good morning, my name is Grace Manda from Malawi Police Service.
Good morning, my name is Gradue Kubaru from Police.
Good morning. My name is Martha Kwengwere from Office of the Ombudsman.
Good morning. I am Peter Chisi from Malawi Human Rights Commission.
Good morning. My name is Stella from Human Rights of Women and Girls with Disabilities, White Disability Rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Today is a continuation of something that we started in March. We are saying strengthening access to justice for all citizens. And in March this year, we had a meeting at Ufulu. We had a great discussion. And today we would like to continue that discussion, but now coming up also with the action plans. So may I invite Emma Kalea Shikwenembe.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Gender Justice Unit, I would like to call upon our board member to come in front and make the opening remarks before we start everything.
Thank you. Welcome again, everybody. As it has already been announced, I'm Linda Jere, and I'm one of the board members in the Gender Justice Unit. Firstly, I would like to make special salutations to our partners who are sponsoring. Firstly, special recognition to the Open Society Foundation and the Ireland Embassy, the Irish Rule of Law International, Oxfam, GIZ, Plan International, the Seagull Foundation, the Seagull Family Foundation, Barefoot Law, who are also with us, and the Just Associate, who are also with us. We would also like to recognize the Minister of Gender, who we normally also work with in most of the activities that we are doing. I would also like to recognize that in our presence we have Justice Zone Ntaba. We also have representatives from the Malawi Police Service. I've had Ms. Grace Manda in the house. We are also supposed to have Mr. Kubalo. I don't know if he's in the room. the Malawi Anti-Corruption Bureau that is going to be represented by Ms. Mwambula Nondwe, the Independent Complaint Commission represented by Mr. Christopher Tukula, the Malawi Human Rights Commission represented by Mr. Peter Chisi, the Office of the Ombudsman represented by Ms. Martha Kwengwere. All Gender Justice Unit staff, the group village heads that will join us, understandably, the local implementing partners from NGO sector, and also media houses and institutions that are here present. Welcome, feel welcome, and we appreciate your contributions and also your attendance to this meeting. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Gender Justice Unit, I welcome you to this highly anticipated breakfast meeting. The main objective, as stipulated by the convener, is to review the outcomes of the Pabwalo meeting that we had on the 31st of March this year, and also to develop collaboratively an action plan so that we can improve access to justice mechanisms for the citizens of this country. We are gathered here with a shared goal of enhancing access to justice for all, ensuring that every individual's rights are protected and that justice is truly accessible. By engaging in meaningful discussions and collaborative efforts, we can work together towards a more just and equitable society. Throughout this meeting, we'll have the opportunity to explore innovative ideas, share our experiences, and propose effective and workable strategies to overcome the barriers that hinder access to justice. Together, we can. Together, we can pave the way for positive change and make a lasting impact on the life of countless individuals out there that do not have access to justice. I encourage you all to be active, to exchange your thoughts, your experiences, and foster a collaborative environment. Let's engage in open dialogue, challenge the assumptions, and inspire each other, and create solutions that are lasting. Remember, the power of collective action is immense, and by harnessing it, we can create a future where justice truly knows no bounds. So let's get started and make this breakfast meeting a remarkable platform for progress and transformation. Breakfast is still being saved. Enjoy your breakfast, and thank you once again for joining us today. Together, let's come up with something tangible that we'll talk about forever in our future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Right now, we'll go straight into the a recap of what had happened in the previous engagement that we had, the Pabwalo, which was held at Ufulu Gardens on the 31st of March 2023. And I believe all of us were part, and we were part of that Pabwalo discussion, whereby we could dance to music, but today there's no music. It's just us today trying to figure out how best can we talk around the issues that were raised during the Pabwalo. So I just have a few, some slides that I would like to share with you with regard to what had happened, and also for those that do not know about Gender and Justice Unit, just to give a little bit background of who we are and what we are doing. So we are an organization that was founded in 2017, and we are using the law as a tool of gender equality and social justice, and we are doing this by the use of strategic litigation, legal research, strategic partnership, strengthening access to justice through pro bono representation, and also doing research and advocacy. And what we are doing today is part of our strategic area of using research and advocacy, because at the end of this engagement, we believe that whatever we gather today, it also has to feed into our advocacy strategy and research. Our mission is you just want to see a Malawi with citizens who are empowered and are engaged and are also able to embrace social justice and gender equality in Malawi. So we are surrounded by 3 pillars within the organization. That is, we do have what we call legal clinics, whereby we have drop-in clients that are given this legal services through the walk-in clients, and also we do provide hotline services where you can reach out to us when there's a need of legal advice or any other issue that we want to do in terms of legal support. We also conduct mobile clinics, whereby in the impact district areas that we are working in, particularly in Lilongwe here, and also in Kodakoda, where we are able to reach out to communities during mobile clinics that are happening in addressing GBV. Our major pillar also is the GBV response unit and safe house, whereby apart from just supporting with legal literacy and knowledge, we also provide safe housing for those that need security or even a place to seek support when they have experienced GBV. So we do also provide that in partnership with our partner, Trust PSS. We also provide legal literacy using the website. We have a website called Malawi Li, whereby we can get access to Malawi law, to the Malawi laws, and this can be accessed on our website. And this is just a little bit background of who we are and what we are doing country, and also that the strategic pillars that we are working on. So I'll just give you an overview of what we are doing today. So all this is happening with support from OSISA, previously known as OSISA, and currently is called OSF, Open Society Foundation. We are doing a project under the title of Enhancing Access to Justice for the Marginalized Communities, including women and young girls in Malawi through the authorization of the ICCC mechanism. And this was a 9-month project that will end this year. So we had 2 planned activities. The first one was the town hall, where we engaged at Ufulu Gardens, and today is the breakfast engagement that we are having. So today's engagement, we are particularly interested in the review of the town hall outcomes that we had shared during our Pabwalo at Ufulu Gardens. We just want to understand the concerns that were expressed by the citizens during the Pabwalo. I remember we had a diverse representation of marginalized groups that were able to share their challenges that have been experienced in terms of access to justice. And one of it was issues to do with the institutions that they went to seek justice service. And the other objective was wanted to identify gaps and challenges. That is, during this engagement, we just want to identify gaps and challenges that the current access to justice mechanisms have in relation to systematic barriers that are happening that also hinder citizens to access justice services. That is also hearing directly from the service providers themselves. And then again, this engagement provides us with the brainstorm opportunity so as to find solutions that have been raised previously from the Ufulu Gardens engagement, and now today on how best we can improve the environment for people to be able to access to justice. And we are so much hopeful that today we should be able to provide an action plan that can be used by different stakeholders in the room so as to ensure that access to justice is reached out to everyone and is also enhanced within the institutions that are providing the services. Finally, this is a space of strengthening our collaboration, networking. We have colleagues from Uganda, we have colleagues from the civil society, and colleagues from the justice system. So this is a place where we just need to engage, and also from the media. So we just want to provide that platform that by the end of today, we are able to engage and also collaborate and network. So what you should know that in this room, we have human rights oversight bodies that are working in Malawi to ensure that there's access to justice. And most of them are what is comprising of the panelists that we have today. We have the Malawi Human Rights Commission, the Malawi Police Service, the Malawi Anti-Corruption Bureau, the Independent Complaint Commission, and the Office of Ombudsman. So, and we understand that all these listed human rights oversight bodies, their mandate or their role is to provide, preserve law and order, protect the security of the state, persons, and property, and safeguard democratic institutions and procedures to ensure that there is peaceful coexistence of different sections of the community. That's how we understand these human bodies. And today, our key discussion for the breakfast will focus on these two discussion points. The first one being dialogue on challenges and opportunities in enhancing access to justice mechanism. Secondly, dialogue on systematic barriers and challenges obstructing of effective access to justice mechanism. That's what this engagement will be all about. Finally, let me talk around what had come out from the Pabwalo that we had at Ufulu Gardens. On your tables, there is this handout. So this is what had come out, and we have produced it into this leaflet so that we should be able to appreciate what had come out. So I'll just go straight to the gaps that were identified. We had issues that were found within the police and the community victim support unit. One of it being the issues of marginalization of certain types of victims, particularly people that are into sex work, and also the LGBTI community. There was lack of respect and verbal abuse towards the GBV victims. And then there was also issues of coordination, poor coordination in the GBV institutions. And issues of lack of training was also came out clearly, and issues of psychosocial services being provided within the institutions. Within the judiciary, there are also some gaps that were identified. One of it being cases taking too long to be resolved, resulting in most victims forgetting about their cases. And then there was issues of where police officers have abused their powers and are not adequately being addressed into the judiciary. Then another issue that was identified particularly was issues with the chiefs. It's unfortunate that they're not in the room, but then it's good that once they are back, I think we'll be able to update them. Some chiefs take advantage of women and ask for sexual favors in order to provide them with services. This one was also an issue that was raised from the marginalized community that we had invited, that within our communities, traditional leaders had also taken their power so as to abuse the victims, particularly the women. And there's also fraud by women, where there are issues of land issues that was also mentioned, where there's you could buy a land and then that land could not be given to you, but it could be given to the other person. So these are some of the issues that were also identified. And as I said, most of the issues are in this leaflet and we'll be able to go through them. You can be able to go through them. So from these identified issues, we also had recommendations that came forward. One of it was issues of recruitment and training more personnel in all sectors in GBV response. The other one also has to do with providing specialized services for the marginalized groups in order to ensure that the beneficiaries are satisfied with quality of service. The issue also of ensuring that there is a GBV response throughout the country at all levels. That is, there has to be access to services within the police, the health, the social welfare, and the judiciary services. All these service providers were taken into account as the major points where a person who has been victimized can access services. So there was just a need of insurance that this has to be done. And then another issue that was that also came into profile on the recommendation was issue to do with training service providers to respect dignity and privacy of survivors, particularly the marginalized groups. And I believe possibly today we shall also be able to talk around these issues. And another one was issue to do with the referral pathways for the victims, whereby they have to report cases of abuse of power by the chiefs, politicians, and the GBV service providers. I think this was also another interesting case whereby now the ICCR office was put into profile at the corner, because most of the marginalized groups that were represented in that meeting never understood where they can go when the chiefs, politicians, and the GBV service providers are violating them when they want to access these services. Then there was issues of programs that also goes to civil society that are in this room. How do we ensure that we empower and educate women in politics so as to address the imbalances of power, influence, and resources between males and females in Malawian politics also? And then finally, there was issues of strengthening coordination mechanisms, that how are we coordinated in GBV response? Are we working as individuals or we are working jointly together? So all these recommendations were made through that, through the engagement that we had at Ufulu. And this is where I end the recap, and I hope everyone is now back to where we were from Ufulu Gardens, and today we'll start from there. So, it has been great, and it's great to have you around back today so as for us to talk around the way forward of what had happened at Ufulu Gardens. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Emma. When I was seated there, I was like, did I introduce myself? Okay, so I'm Sylvia Namakwa. I work for a local NGO. It's called Trust Psychosocial Support. Our focus is mental health and psychosocial support. But I'm here as a MC today. But if you need some of the services that I've mentioned, please come forward. I would also want to take this opportunity to welcome our online participants. This time, I think it's time for one big thing that we are here for. We have a group of panelists, so I would like to invite them to take their seats in front. And this section will be moderated by Justice Zwone Taba. I would like to invite Senior Superintendent Gladwell Pabwalo, Ngwamba Nundwe from ACB, the Senior Legal and Prosecution Officer, Director of Investigation, under Ombudsman, Martha Kwengwere, the Commissioner for Independent Complex Commission, Commissioner Tukula, and then Director of Civil and Political Rights at the Malawi Human Rights Commission, Mr. Peter Chisi, Senior Superintendent Grace Manda, the National Coordinator for the VSU Desk Office. Would you please come and take your spot on this side? Taombere manja kubwere.
I think for a fact that Malawi has legally set down access to justice regime in the Constitution. And we do know that because if you look at the Bill of Rights, you look at the whole concept of how our Constitution is set down, it does, in its very essence, highlight the importance of access to justice. It has further expanded this access to justice by ensuring that there are laws out there that actually promote access to justice. Whether you talk about the Legal Aid Act, that is set to enhance access to justice. You also realize that Malawi as a country has resources that actually implement and ensure the promotion of access to justice. Most of these institutions that are here are meant to actually do that. But we realize as a country that we continue to face a lot of challenges when it comes to access to justice. And this is because it is ranging from all various issues, which I'm hoping the panel will be discussing today. And if we look at those challenges, it is hoped that today's discussion and gathering will strategically look at them and try to find opportunities to reduce or remove these challenges. Let me thank all my panelists for joining us this morning, and let it be known that we are hoping for a full and frank discussion. because that is what our country needs, but more so, that is what our people need and expect from us to be discussing. So, without further ado, I'm going to ask all my panelists this question. We've been talking about systemic barriers. What are the systemic barriers that individuals and communities face in accessing justice in Malawi? And how do these barriers disproportionately affect certain groups? So I will start with, he's unlucky, he's right next to me. So Mr. Tukula, who is a classmate, so he will have to forgive me for today. So I'll start with Mr. Tukula.
Thank you so much, Judge. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Indeed, it's very clear looking at the human rights landscape of the country, and as was already agreed during the Pabwalo meeting in March at Ufulu Garden, we have experienced and continue to experience a lot of barriers in terms of people accessing justice. The Independent Complaints Commission, as a new kid in the access to justice sector, has a specific mandate aimed at resolving some of the barriers. When we rolled out our operations, we immediately noted that the first barrier is civic awareness. People do not know what the Independent Complaints Commission is, but not being a new institution, perhaps that's understandable. But we also noted that there were people that had suffered the abuse at the hands of the police, and they didn't know that we had a Human Rights Commission, or the Office of the Ombudsman, the Legal Aid Bureau, or in some cases even the Anti-Corruption Bureau to report to. So the first systemic barrier that we have noted is that the people that we are supposed to serve out there don't know the various mechanisms that our constitution, our laws, our country has put in place. This places a duty on us as the duty bearers in the various access to justice institutions to be more proactive in positioning ourselves in a way that people know who we are, what we do, where to find us, even how to take us to task when we are not forthcoming with solutions whenever we have received complaints from the people. So admittedly, the first barrier is one of accessibility, visibility, awareness of what our institutions are there to do in trying to increase access to justice. Judge, maybe let me stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pabwalo, I'm just going to keep the theme of the police going through. What do you think are the systemic barriers, and how do they disproportionately affect our people and our communities?
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. As indicated earlier on, my name is Pabwalo. I'm the head of Digital Forensics and the Cyber Crimes Unit based at National Police Headquarters. Basically, as Cyber Crimes Unit, we receive a lot of cases, and mostly we deal with those cyber crime cases. I would rather say that we are meeting a lot of challenges as far as access to justice is concerned. For example, there are a lot of cases which are not reported. They just go without being reported. At one point in time, I was looking at our statistics, and it was showing that most of these cases that are not reported, they are those that target men. Men do not report most of these cases. When we were trying to find out the reason why these cases are not reported, we discovered that some of them, they are ashamed or shy to report those cases. While some, they fear that maybe if I report this case, then the one who has perpetrated that case might attack me further, so they don't report those cases. I also found out that most of the cases that are reported, they are reported by the females. About 70% of the reported cases, they are reported by females. Yet, close to the same percentage, those cases are perpetrated by men. So you can see that the cases are done by men, but reported by ladies. And then the men, they don't report the cases on reasons as indicated earlier on. It is my wish that as a grouping, we have to know the reporting mechanism and where to report those cases. Some of us do not even know where to report these cases, or even the reporting mechanism. We don't know the reporting mechanism. There are also some individuals or Malawian citizens. They don't even know that this is a crime. Like the crimes that are done online, the crimes that we do on social media. Some of us do not know that this is a crime. They just do it for the sake of doing it. At one point in time, I was interviewing certain girls. They even didn't know that what they were doing is a crime. For example, if you reshare something which is like the information that you got online and then you share it without the consent of the person, that's a crime. And you see that most of those girls, they were not aware that that is a crime. So I think for a start, I have to stop there. Thank you.
My final panelist is here, Mrs. Gondwe. She's going to just take her seat. But while she's taking her seat, may I ask Ms. Nundwe to actually highlight to us what do you think some of these systemic barriers are doing to a number of certain groups, whether you talk about women, whether you talk about men, whether you talk about LGBTIQ, or whether you talk about sex workers. How do these systemic barriers disproportionately affect these people?
Thank you. I'll speak in terms of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. The Anti-Corruption Bureau has offices in Lilongwe, Blantyre, Zomba, and Mzuzu. We do not have offices all over Malawi. As such, there are some marginalized groups who are in far places who cannot find us, maybe because of their financial resources. This will affect them because they cannot report the corruption experiences they've been experiencing in their districts. So recently, the Anti-Corruption Bureau introduced ACB clinics where we follow individuals in their districts. We actually go to far rural places to teach them about teach them about corruption. So right there and then, if they have any experiences, they will report to us and we'll handle their cases right there and then. But in an instance where we did not introduce this program and people, marginalized groups have problems, they are experiencing corruption and cannot come to us because of where our offices are located, then they wouldn't have access to justice and they wouldn't report what they are experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, turning to the oversight institutions, you receive a lot of complaints and you've done a lot of studies about systemic barriers. What are some of your findings in terms of how these barriers affect people? Because it is from you that we hear, whether it's at the hospital, whether it's in prison, or whether it's in camps, refugee camps. So from that regard, Mr. GC, may we hear from you?
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. As introduced, my name is Peter Chisi from the Malawi Human Rights Commission. I agree, firstly, with the other panelists who have highlighted a number of systematic barriers that we see in accessing justice in Malawi. To start with, what this means is that there are some sectors of community that are at least served by our justice system. There are also some sectors of community that feel forgotten, and some of them actually feel that there is no justice in this country. What I would like to say is that when we talk about access to justice, we must be looking at both sides. So for instance, if there are criminal elements involved, there must be justice for the victim. There must also be justice for the suspect. In other words, we want all of them to receive fairness. We usually see that so far, maybe as a country, our justice has focused more on the criminal part or the punishment side and not restorative justice. What am I looking at? I am saying that where people have been victimized, apart from us focusing on punishing the offenders, I think as a country we can also do more in terms of providing support to the victims. When we look at some of the marginalized groups, I can talk about prisoners, I can talk about refugees, I can also talk about the poor girl child. These groups are actually, most of them, feel that there isn't much justice out there. For instance, if I give the example of prisoners will be in two categories. So you have those that have been tried and convicted and sentenced, and then you also have those that are awaiting trial or those on remand. One thing that comes out clear is that our prisons are like half convicted prisoners and maybe the rest still waiting for trial. What we have found is that some people stay too long on remand. I think shortly we might have situations where maybe someone is waiting trial for 15 years, because I think at the last check we found some people that are on remand for more than 12 years. As a commission, we think that this is a matter of concern, and it does dent our image in terms of the judicial system. So we can actually do more in terms of the time that we actually take to have cases concluded, so that whoever is in prison must actually know their fate and not actually just staying there forever. Some of them, files have been lost. Some of them, they were tried and concluded, but they're just waiting for judgment. Nothing is happening. So, in other words, our view as a commission is that we seem to have justice that is for the elite, those that have money, those that can afford legal representation because they are able to push the courts and their cases are concluded. For most of the poor, cases take forever, and sometimes even where compensation has been awarded for them, we still see that there is a high default rate, and that is also falling on our government, because there is a lot of cases out there where the courts have awarded compensation, but people are just waiting to be paid and nothing is being done. That is not justice. When you look at other groups...
Mr. Chisi. Thank you. Just wind up on that comment.
When you look at other groups, I think like my colleague from the police was, I think from the other institution was saying, there are some members of society who are like shy, or they feel afraid of our system. You look at sex workers, for instance, members of the LGBT community, they are not actually willing to present themselves before the courts because of fear of further victimization. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kwengwere, same question. You are from the Oversight Committee, an oversight body. What are the effects of these systemic barriers on the people that you're seeing in your institution of the Office of the Ombudsman?
Thank you very much. My name is Martha Kwengwere, Director of Investigations and Research from Office of the Ombudsman. In terms of the experiences that Office of the Ombudsman has, there are some structural barriers in terms of the buildings in which our offices operate. For example, the headquarters here in Lilongwe and Zuzu offices, our offices are placed high up with stairs, and there are no lifts to accommodate people who have mobility challenges. That is posing as a challenge, and it is also very significant because we can now see, according to our statistics, that we are recording less numbers of people who are coming to report, especially those people that are living with disabilities, because probably we just believe that it's because of the way our offices are designed. So that is affecting the people so much in accessing our services in order to have their injustices redressed. And also communication barriers. We have noted that Malawi is a linguistically diverse country, and not all individuals have proficiency in the official language of English, let alone Chichewa. And sometimes people may find difficult to come and complain because they'll have difficulties to communicate. So this is also a problem, and more especially those that sometimes we don't have even interpreters for the sign languages for the people who may not be able to understand and may need some assistance. So Office of the Ombudsman is also not spared in this respect. We have problems in this. So this can be challenging for the people to articulate their issues well when they come to complain. And apart from this, there are also barriers of geographical accessibility. It is noted that Malawi's justice system is not really accessible to the people living in remote areas. And this, there's a cost involved for people if they want to go and visit the offices, which most of the times are away from their communities, and there's a cost involved. And by that, most people just give up to assert their rights because they think of the associated cost for them to be able to travel and then may lodge their complaint to offices or institutions that deal with the issues of access to justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, let's go to our communities. And yes, I'll not start with Ms. Gondo because Ms. Gondo just joined us, but let me start with Ms. Manda. Although she works for the police, but her work involves a lot more of the community. What are the systemic barriers that the communities are facing? And why are they facing these, and how do these disproportionately affect them?
Thank you so much. As Elia said, my name is Grace Manda from Malawi Police Service. I'm the Victim Support Unit Desk Officer. Just like other panelists have said, in the community, the other barriers that they face is long distances. For instance, survivors of gender-based violence, they travel long distances to access justice. And the other challenge is the adjournment of cases, whether at court or at police station for mediation. So as such, the survivors will end up withdrawing the case because they will take long time for their case to be completed. And the other challenge that the community face is service charges that is associated with access to justice. For instance, for someone to acquire a summon, she or he has to pay for that summon. Even for a police report, they have to pay. So for someone who is not financially stable, cannot afford to pay for these services. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Gondwe, the question was, what are some of the systemic barriers that individuals and communities face in accessing justice? And how do these barriers disproportionately affect certain groups? Your response, ma'am.
Thank you very much. My name is Tuonge Gondwe. I'm coming from Rumpi. I'm the director for Chikuramembe Women Forum. As Women Forum, we have found that there are so many barriers. Some of them have already been mentioned, but I'll just speak quickly on the other things which we face as Women Forum in accessing to justice. The first one is lack of legal aid. Because in communities, others, they don't know about the legal aid. The other thing is not aware of the laws and policies, not even in user-friendly languages. It's only in English. So a laywoman like me will not know about the jargon of the technical, legal languages. The other thing is too many uncleared cases in police, in court, which delayed justice. So justice delayed is justice denied. And sometimes if I'm a woman, I don't have so many resources going to and from the court, as my colleague has said, some are coming from long distances. The other way will say, okay, then let me drop the case. The other thing is tampering on evidences. Sometimes when I go to police as a woman, seeing me as I am, I'm a Joachani. Then they'll tamper on the evidence. By the time the case goes to court, the court will have to say, this evidence is not enough. But the time you were going to the court, you had good evidence. Sometimes the police kuma kaona kuti ati evidence ya soa, statement yomwe tina kulembani inasoa. Going to police 3-4 times, kukalembedwa statement. And even translating the medical report could not be translated the way maybe a victim or survivor of violence was talking about. The other thing is fear of health personnel to testify in court. Most of these cases are maybe defilement case. If they say the health personnel should testify, you find that the health personnel can deny, can take long time to testify in court. So some orders, like maintenance order, like in court, they are not being met. If I've gone for maintenance order, I'll be going there now and then, asking for the money. Maybe the perpetrator has said to me that you can go to court, you find the money. Then when I go to court, they will say there's no money here. Sometimes the money is being mismanaged by the clerks or the messengers. When I look forward to say, okay, maybe it has taken a long time for me to have the money. Let me even seek another court procedure so that this perpetrator should be brought on book. The messenger could say, okay, napita sina mpezi, pamene yo wakuziwa chimene achita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I think she's brought in a very fundamental issue, the ability for us to also speak in our native languages. I know I might not understand Chitumbuka and Chiao as effectively, but I do realize that some of these things have to be explained because we do have others who are joining elsewhere, but also the ability. One of the things that we're talking about as being a systemic barrier is the concept of language. We're all speaking in English, but the people we serve, most of the Malawians that we serve, speak in Chichewa. So, from what all my panelists are saying, I think one thing is clear: the barriers are numerous. But the question that comes into play: how many times do we continue having to talk about these barriers? Since I was at the Ministry of Justice and started as a prosecutor then, I've heard about long distances. I've heard about survivors, retracting because police were corrupt. All sorts of issues. How long do we have to work with these problems as a country? And the question is, how long do the people we serve have to continue hearing from us? Whether it's about entrenched inefficiencies, because we're talking about them freely here. The question comes into play, how long? Because a number of these issues, the systemic barriers that we're looking at, they have numerous what they call symptoms and problems. All this non-reporting, and tukusakane na ku police, it's ndifo yona kuti akuona corruption. Akuona tikabanga report and sakutani sakusunta. Akaona so munthu amene akubwera ku court sakuteke second case yaweti. So it really is a thing that I think as individuals and as people who are in charge here, today I'm taking myself out, since I'm the moderator. you put me on the spot when I come in as a judiciary. But for today, I am not coming in as that. I'm coming in as the moderator. So I'm going to go back to each of my panelists to help me understand some of the issues that are very intrinsic to the organizations that they're serving. I will not start with Mr. Tukula. He will kill me if I start with him again. But let's start with Ms. Nundwe. We're talking about intersectionality. It's critical for justice. How can we ensure that this justice system recognizes and addresses the unique challenges faced by individuals who belong to multiple marginalized groups, especially when they have to deal with corruption?
Thank you. First, we have to understand the term intersectionality. People have different identities. The way these identities interact with each other is called intersectionality. Now, various forms of discrimination, such as those centered on race, gender, class, disability, sexuality, do not work independently, but they interact. Now, the justice system is comprised of various agencies, such as the Malawi Police Service, the judiciary. They are there to administer and enforce the law. Now, we can ensure that the justice system recognizes and addresses the unique challenges faced by individuals who belong to marginalized communities by developing legal framework that recognizes multiple and coexisting forms of discrimination. Intersectional discrimination has not yet been reflected in our laws. Our law has taken a single access perspective. It only identifies, for example, a single ground or in cases of discrimination. For example, we have laws that protect women. We have laws that protect children, such as the Constitution or the Child Care Protection and Justice Act. However, a woman can also be a lesbian at the same time. A woman can also be a sexual worker at the same time. She would be protected by the law as a woman, but would not be protected as a lesbian. So I think we need to develop a legal framework that recognizes the multiple coexisting forms of discrimination that are there. The absence of legal mechanism capable of dealing with all these challenges is what is bringing us down. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kondo, I know I stopped you from continuing, but that was because you were going into my next ideas and thoughts. What strategies can be employed to enhance legal literacy and awareness among the general public to help them navigate the justice system? And how do we as a country move towards legal empowerment? Because it's not enough for us to be aware, but how do we use these laws to protect ourselves? How do you think our communities can work towards that?
Thank you. Our laws should be translated into user-friendly languages. And also, when we go to court, they should ensure that the language or the interpretation is for me as a survivor. Make sure that I am expressing on my language freely so that I should express what I need from the justice system. On top of that, when we talk of justice, they should shorten the procedures. They should shorten the paperwork. They should fasten the judgment so that the justice system is being accessed timely. And on top of that, we should also have mobile courts, because I have seen mobile courts being helpful. When the court is at a community level, the magistrates usually interpret some of the laws to people. And when they are there, that means a lot of people are accessing the justice. So the use of mobile court is very vital in making sure that access to justice is being held in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kwengwele, do you think government is doing enough in ensuring equitable access to justice? And what steps can government take to improve the system, especially noting that your office receives a lot of complaints about legal service delivery in Malawi?
Thank you very much. I would have two stands to it. On one hand, I would say yes, government is doing enough to ensure equitable access to justice. But on the other hand, I would also say no, there's room for improvement. Why do I say government is doing enough? Government put in place laws. The law that we have in Malawi, such as the Malawi Republican Constitution, statutes, as well as policies that we have that govern our system. And apart from that, the government established institutions such as Office of the Ombudsman, Malawi Human Rights Commission, among others, that are there to safeguard administrative justice and to ensure that people have access to justice. And apart from that, the government, when it established these institutions, it also provides monetary or financial support to it, because we operate on budgets which are funded by government, like Office of the Ombudsman. And I'm happy to say the budget that we are implementing now, it's able to follow the cash flow. The cash flow is following the budget. So we appreciate for that. And speaking of outside the Office of the Ombudsman, I would also think of increasing staffing levels in the judiciary by recruiting professional magistrates. This is a plus on government. And it has also rehabilitated some of the rural courts through the Rule of Law program under the European Union Court Chilungamo program. And it has also increased number of judges, and also created specialized divisions in the High Court, such as the Financial Crimes Court. Now, on the other hand, as I said, I would say government need to do more because there's a lack of government effort to ensure that the justice system monitors its performance. The government can lobby through the head of the judiciary to encourage the judiciary administration to monitor performance of judges and magistrates, for example, by requiring that each judicial officer should be able to submit their monthly returns in their system. This would ensure performance checks and minimize the delays in dealing with the cases, thereby promoting access to justice. Why am I saying this? It's because at Office of the Ombudsman, our role is to deal with maladministration, and the delay is one of the issues of maladministration. So you usually receive such complaints coming from members of the public to say there are delays. And also the other thing is availability of judges and magistrates at the courts is not being monitored. So complaints of unavailability of judges at the court during working hours and the lack of punctuality are increasing and reported at the Office of the Ombudsman. Government needs to lobby that monitoring of the judges and magistrates' availability is done, which would reduce time wastage and delays, which is maladministration, as I said. And in the end, it affects the rate of access to justice. Allocation of resources is inadequate to institutions delivering equitable justice in order to guarantee or facilitate access to justice. I was saying of the budget that we have. Yes, we have a budget, but that budget, usually the money that is allocated to institutions that are dealing with justice is not enough. So, Office of the Ombudsman is not excluded in this. We usually don't get enough to be able to reach out to the masses out there in their communities, because it is our wish, as everybody else has said, to be able to reach people in their communities so that they access justice easily. But we talk of mobile clinics, which we also conduct. It takes a lot of money for us to be able to travel to the communities. And the money that we receive from government in terms of our ORT is not enough to sustain this. So in case of the judiciary, I'll talk in case of the judiciary, homicide trials, they are also requiring a lot of financial resources to be able to be tried in the districts, because they have to travel to the districts. But of late, we have experienced that they are not able to go there as often as they are expected to because of lack of resources. So it is therefore important that government should allocate enough resources to justice institutions to deal with shortcomings in the effective functioning of the justice system in order to facilitate equitable access to justice. There are also minimal or lack of efforts by government to facilitate access to technological equipment and internet by the society. In this age where internet usage is increasing, it is becoming apparent that usually most of the people that are using this are those that can easily afford to have a smartphone or even to access internet. So my recommendation would be for government to be able to stand in that gap, to talk with mobile phone networks, so that perhaps they could be having phones on loan, smartphones, and then be able to reduce their internet charges, so that everyone else, even in the rural areas, they are able to log in and to see what is happening in the country in terms of justice accessibility, and also even to log on to our respective institutions' platforms to be able to lodge complaints online. That requires people to have smartphones and access to internet, which is affordable.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, Mr. Kubalo, taking into account technology and innovation, what is police doing to enhance access to justice? And how can we ensure that these tools are accessible to everyone?
Basically, the Malawi Police Service is doing a lot. As you know that these days we are going digital, and most of these crimes, they are happening online. So as a law enforcement agency, if we sit down and then do nothing, then it means we are not helping the people. So the Malawi Police Service, the first thing that is doing is to lobby for funds from stakeholders to help it establish a fully fledged forensic lab. Because if you have a fully forensic lab with relevant equipment, like digital equipment, and the quality or modern software will be able to analyze the digital evidence, and then will be able to track the criminals. And also if we have the human capital, which is skilled in how to analyze the digital evidence, I think that will help a lot. Because if you have the equipment and then you don't have the people to analyze the evidence, then that will be a very, very big challenge. So it is up to the relevant stakeholders. I will not mention, but you are looking out for those companies to help in the human capital, developing the human capital. We are also looking at the fact that as Malawi Police Service, we do awareness campaigns targeting the rural masses. These campaigns are done together with the relevant cooperating partners so that we deal with these cases together. We know that the fight against crime is not a single person's effort. It is a collective effort. We have to join hands in the fight against these crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Mr. Chisi, let me just finish with police. Ms. Manda, how can communities and grassroots organizations be actively involved in shaping and improving access to justice mechanisms? And how do we enhance community policing, especially victim support, taking into account that nowadays, ukapita kuma victim support units, amakuza ndikuti tatopa, tipa pangono, tilibe ma resources, komaso, all these issues, how then do we help them, and how do we continue to enhance these community policing forums? and the community victim support units?
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge that in as far as we have victim support unit in all police stations, but our services are not up to standard. This is because most of our VSU officers are not trained. So we can improve this by capacity building to all victim support officers. And this training can also be extended to all police officers, because at one point or another, each and every police officer can encounter a survivor or victim support unit. So if we train all police officers on gender-based violence, they will be able to know how to handle cases of gender-based violence. The other thing is that we should include victim support unit or gender-based violence training into our curriculum, right away from the initial training, like recruits as they join the Malawi Police Service. They should know the issues of gender-based violence. And on moral, I think the best way is that the Malawi Police Service should ensure that officers from the victim support unit should be of high integrity. And officers who are found wrong, they should be dealt with accordingly without favor. Because if we favor them, they will not change. On limited resources, I think the best way is that the Malawi Police Service should make sure that the officers in the victim support unit, they should work professionally based on the available resources. Within the resources that they have, they should work professionally. And also, the commanding officers should prioritize victim support unit activities when allocating resources. And this will help to prevent or respond to gender-based violence. And lastly, as an office, we are lobbying for well-wishers to support us in resources, because this is a big challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Manda has touched a very critical issue. And Mr. Tukola, this issue goes to you. Policing and law enforcement are vital for the safety and security of our communities. However, maintaining public trust and accountability is equally crucial. If you notice from the last Pabwalo, police rated highly in terms of the problems that are coming up. How do we envision striking a balance between supporting the police in their duties and ensuring effective oversight and accountability for police misconduct and complaints? Could you share some of the specific strategies or initiatives you plan to implement during your tenure to achieve the balance, especially looking at the numerous incidences of police incidents? I'll give you a couple of ones that I've just heard this week and last week. Last week, my sister-in-law was charged with a traffic offense of speeding. She was going 71 in a 60-kilometer space. These are people from Area 30 who, it is my belief that traffic officers from Area 30 should be more knowledgeable because they are at the headquarters. They are in charge of teaching others. They're in charge of the strategic direction. The first thing they tell when she said, "I cannot pay," what is the process? They said, "We're impounding your car." Now we know the minister issued out a notice last month that no one has the right to impound a car for a speeding offense because it is not within the law. But this is a police officer saying, "I will impound your car for a speeding ticket, for a 71 and 11-kilometer ticket in a 60-kilometer zone." Not only that, the last also incident that I had was a police officer, a tail light, same thing, a traffic officer, tail light is off. Instead of telling the person, "I will issue you a ticket, go fix it, come pay your ticket," no, "I will impound your vehicle." Same thing. These are people coming from, these are our regional headquarters. We talk about corruption. So what needs to be done? Because people are stopping to report to police because of the misconduct. And they do not segregate whether you are poor or rich, disabled or what. Everyone in this country has been subject of police misconduct, including myself. So, Mr. Tukola, over to you.
Thank you so much, Judge, for that question, complete with the examples. Indeed, if you look at our in-tray at the Independent Complaints Commission, it is replete with the incoming complaints on a daily basis. Police work in Malawi is very pervasive. It affects everyone, almost every sector, for the simple reason that we rely on the police for protection, for enforcement of law and order, and as a result, if the police mismanage their work, the impact is far-reaching. It's going to affect so many people because we rely on them for a lot of things. We've received complaints on corruption issues. We've received complaints on road traffic issues. There are issues of police brutality, detentions without trial or any sort of the due process. All these complaints, we are receiving them in towns here, within town, or even beyond, in the remotest parts of Malawi, where people are complaining various abuses at the hands of the police. This is the more reason the law put in place mechanisms for addressing public complaints against the police. The law was provided for way back in 2010. It has taken us almost a decade to have an office roll out operations on the ground. But before that, we have our colleagues in the Malawi Human Rights Commission, in some cases, even the Office of the Ombudsman or the Anti-Corruption Bureau, handling complaints about the Malawi Police Service or on the policing functions in Malawi. What we are looking at our role as an addition to the efforts that have already been made. So we are collaborating with our friends in the SB, Malawi Human Rights Commission, and the Ombudsman, trying to understand and see what they have done before, the challenges that they have faced, and indeed the challenges are cross-cutting. We need to strengthen the legal framework. So that's the first thing that we want to do. As I've already highlighted, this law was introduced in 2010. 2010 is a long way back. Things have changed. And if you look at the law, it's only 20 sections within the Police Act that provide for the operation of the Independent Complaints Commission. For example, the ICC doesn't have prosecutorial powers. Its ultimate power is to recommend sanctions. So what happens if, for example, we find evidence that a police officer mishandled a road traffic situation, victimized someone wrongfully? We will recommend to the Inspector General of Police or the Police Service Commission to discipline a police officer. But beyond that, there are no legal mechanisms on how we can follow up. There is not even a time limit within which our recommendations have to be addressed. Even if they are not addressed, there are no corresponding sanctions. Should there be any criminal facts emerging from a mishandling of a police situation, we make recommendations to the Director of Public Prosecution, for criminal prosecution. If the Director of Public Prosecution doesn't prosecute, again, there is no legal fallback on the part of the ICC in terms of following up or taking any further action. So we need to strengthen the law in that regard, give the Commission more power to enforce its recommendations or to enforce the sanctioning of defaulters. As was earlier highlighted, as we focus on addressing the victim side, let us also address the defaulters side. I believe that the best approach to dealing with issues of corruption, misconduct, and professionalism in the police is to ensure that the few elements that are perpetrating such conduct or misconduct within the police are accountable, are brought to book. If we sanction 2 or 3 traffic officers who take advantage of the people or people's desperation on the road, that would be the best civic education to the rest of the police officers. So, tightening the legal framework. Secondly, we are partnering with the police to introduce or enhance integrity and ethical issues in the police curriculum both in the basic recruit training course as well as on the continuing basis. So now in the police, they have introduced the integrity committees. They have introduced committees that are overseeing corruption issues. There is a police professional standards within the police that enforces internally as a police service without waiting for other external case handling bodies to bring issues to it. They are trying within the police to introduce internal accountability mechanisms. We want to strengthen the curriculum and we want to strengthen these measures, monitoring how they are performing and seeing to it that they are working. Most of the police officers that we have interacted with will tell us that since I came out of the basic recruit course, I've only seen other people going for training. I've never gone for training. There are so many of them. And the police is one of the most resourced institutions in terms of human capacity. We have so many police officers, so it's a burden to have these police officers trained. As an independent complaints commission, we have already started inviting cohorts of police officers for seminars and workshops on integrity issues and corruption issues, trying to bring awareness around the existence of the Independent Complaints Commission, the nature of complaints that we are receiving, and some of the cases that we have handled. But it's a very large workforce. The police, there are so many people.
Maybe I can interject. In terms of these complaints that you're receiving, how much of that information is out there? Have you ever given us as the public the nature of complaints, how many they are, which departments are? Maybe that is something that would also help us. Maybe by you being transparent about the problems, it might give us also a feedback as to how much we can tell you is going on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judge. Indeed, that's a valid point. Our first ever annual report will be out by the end of this year, where we are tabulating all these statistics. But internally, as we interact with the police, we have always been transparent with them. We engage them, telling them these are the number of complaints that we have received in the last quarter, and this is what we are doing about them. So the statistics are out there. We've handled the number of interactive sessions with the police. But to the outer public, as an institution, we report to Parliament, the Defense and Security Committee of Parliament. We'll first present this report to that committee. Once the committee has adopted the report, obviously it's going to be out there for public consumption, and we can take it up from there.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gis.
Maybe before to Mr. Gis.
Okay, what is it so burning?
A quick one.
Yes.
A simple.
Let's hear it first.
All right. I just wanted to say that there are always bad apples, so we need to understand. That's being honest. I remember at one point in time I was at Indira and police station, and then I went to a leisure center. Only one person was aware of who I was by that time. And then they were saying, you know what, Indira and police, all of them, they are corrupt. So the one who was saying that didn't know that I'm a CID officer, and we were sitting on the same table. So he said a lot of issues. Then I said, okay, all Indira and police officers, they are corrupt. All right, fine. Do you know me? No. I said, okay, I'm a police officer. I said, but you are not from Ndira. I said, I'm there at Ndira, and you are saying all of them, they are corrupt. So these are some of the cases that people do generalize, but we have to understand that we have the bad apples, yes, but not all of them can be corrupt. Thank you.
I see you had to justify. Mr. GC, you round up the discussion for today. We talk about measuring success. How can we measure the effectiveness of the efforts to enhance access to justice? Because I think that's fundamental. Everything that we're doing today and everything that the partners in here are doing as to enhance access to justice. Give us some key indicators that people can be looking forward to using, since we are going to be developing action points. And do you think there are lessons or best practices from elsewhere that we could use as Malawi to enhance access to justice?
Thank you so much for that question. And I think From the Human Rights Commission, I will start with the broader perspective in terms of our position. We think that there is need for data. And for that reason, as a commission, we are proposing that we conduct a comprehensive public inquiry into issues of access to justice so that all the things that are being mentioned can actually be verified and validated. And from there, we can come up with the sector-specific recommendations. So it is our hope that assignment can be undertaken because we need to speak with facts and figures and not just emotions. Because that is also going to help to unpack. When we talk about the justice system, there are many layers. What is happening in the in the lower layers? What is happening in the middle layers? What is happening on top, and so on and so forth? We have the formal as well as informal justice sectors. I can also put in what is known as the primary justice, where some civil society organizations actually play. And then we have also other stakeholders or institutions who contribute through alternative dispute resolution. So the contributions of all these players must be properly documented. That said, we think as a commission that we need to expand opportunities for alternative dispute resolution other than just focusing on maybe prosecuting matters in court. We also think that we need to expand legal representation through the proposal to allow assistant legal officers or paralegals to represent some people, especially in the lower courts at the magistrate court, because that is going to give opportunities for people that are not being adequately serviced by our legal profession. We also propose that we should deliberately directly engage the judiciary, maybe through the Chief Justice as well as other offices, so that we can actually address some of the inefficiencies that have been noted. I should say that sometimes maybe there is overemphasis on the issue of judicial independence, so that even where you have challenges or problems of delayed judgments, this and that, you can't question because you might be seen to be interfering with the independence of the judiciary. But through proper engagements, we can find ways so that timelines can be there. Should cases take more than 5 years, more than 10 years, and so on and so forth? The answer is no. We also need to address some cultural barriers because of some unreported cases. I think issues of morality here, some matters to do with sexual exploitation, gender-based violence, sometimes are not reported just because we are hiding in culture. And that is a big problem in this country. So we also propose that we should build the capacity for primary justice providers, and then we need to conduct an analysis of the contribution of all the sectors that contribute to justice. That said, we can also borrow a leaf from other countries where, for instance, they have expanded their intake in terms of who is able to provide what services, because justice should not be seen to be a monopoly of one institution. And all those involved have a role to play and must be appreciated. I think briefly I can put it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Can we clap hands for my panelists? I know we are running out of time. I thought we would have time to take at least one or two comments from the section, but we won't be able to do that. But I'm not sure if online we have any comments or discussion. Okay. There's nothing online? Okay. So please allow me to thank my panelists for being such wonderful panelists, but also for ensuring that the debate that we're going to go into in the smaller groups is started. If you've noticed, in terms of the barriers, there's a lot that has been indicated, but also actionable points. But what I love about the discussion herein is the need for practicality. I think we need to underscore that, the need for practicality, but also the need for making sure that this reaches the furthest of furthest in Malawi. Whether you talk of Ontalire or whether you talk of, what's the furthest down there? Bangula, not Bangula. Malawi, yes. So you look at those, let's look at the people that we need to serve and need to be served. So I thank you all, and I wish us very good discussions when we go into group. Thank you. In terms of the groups, I will ask my panelists to each, so we're going to have 3 groups. We're going to have 3 groups. So 2 panelists will be on this one, so we separate them. So panelist Tukula and panelist Gondwe will be here on that group. Panelist Manda, panelist Nundwe, and panelist Chisi will be on this one. Kubaro and Kwengwere will be on this one. So people will join these groups like that. So the tables, table 1, which is that table, will stay there. Table 2 that are here will stay there. GJU, Barefoot, JAS will separate into 3 groups, right? And this table, that is the 3rd table, will join this table over here. Thank you. So if you notice from the program, in your groups, you're going to identify the critical issues, those that you've heard today, but those that you also know yourselves, formulate actionable recommendations, and based on the Pabwalo Town Hall outcomes that you've also received. And then we'll be back here, we're starting at 11, we'll be back here at 11:15 to build on those recommendations as a group before we close. We might close a little bit later than 11:30, we might close at 12, but it will not go beyond 12 o'clock. Thank you.
So a comment from a participant who has joined us online, Mr. Wells Chigwenembe from ActionAid. He says recordation on improving access to justice in Malawi, enhance awareness raising, especially targeting women, girls, and youths in the rural communities through different local platforms. And for example, he talks about community radios, outreach programs in local languages. He also says enhance such breakfast engagement at all levels with particular focus on reviewing the implementation of the action plans developed from this meeting. Also enhance visibility and documentation of best practices and outcomes from such engagements, capacity building of key players, strengthening relationships between citizens and service providers. So that's a comment from one of our online participants. Thank you so much, Mr. Chigwenembe. So I will not take comments now. We'll wait until we have all shared what we discussed, and then we can get comments if there will be any additional comments.
Good afternoon to the room. As we all know, we had a lot of limited time, so you forgive us for perhaps a little bit of some abstract ideas in the presentation. However, this is what we discussed from the middle table. So we first identified the key issues in improving access to justice, and one of the first two that we saw was poor or no access to information, as well as limited accessibility of the justice system. So the strategies that we tried to come up with there were of turning information into consumable knowledge, seeing as to a lot of the population that may not understand the difficult terms that we have in the justice system, penal code, litigation, and so forth. And we saw that our action point for that was to use the information that we already have and translate that information. So whether into local languages or change it through theater and things such as that. So we also thought of categorizing the information to say that maybe this information specifically leans towards women and girls, this is towards rights issues and so forth. So for responsible persons, we put it on a hold for now. We are hoping that since Gender Justice Unit has convened us, they may give us better insight on how we may come together and bring our organizations together to be able to carry this out. Our timeline is also blank for now. And the other strategy that we saw on improving access to information was to expand the available options for awareness raising. So we currently have a lot of mass sensitizations, campaigns that are going on, but perhaps they're not all that is there. So we also saw that we could develop civic education and communication strategies. So these would specifically be human-designed, human-centered design, because sometimes as organizations we carry information, take it to the grassroots, we're unaware or unsure whether those are the problems they really have, and we're speaking in terms that they don't understand. So we'd have to develop strategies for civic education and communications. We would also use local structures to add on the existing structures that we currently have. Another strategy is the need for coordinated and collaborative efforts to deliver information effectively. So sometimes we have interventions across the country, but we have Malawi Human Rights Commission for Equality, MHub, each acting independently. We thought that it would be necessary to have coordinated and collaborative efforts. And the action point towards this would be organizing sector-based meetings to later on organize joint interventions. So we'd want mass interventions where every organization has contributed. But again, we'll look to Gender Justice Unit, the Secretariat, to bring us together to be able to effect this. And another strategy was for, in the take space now, innovative wise, to create public domains for individuals to access information on access to justice. So we have developing the platform in vernacular. However, we would have to look into the sustainability of this point and how many people it can reach, considering that not everyone can access a smartphone. Perhaps we can look into USSD and other strategies to do so. And the one responsible for that was MHub, I think, and the one before that was MHRC, through the help of the Secretariat. Another key issue that we identified is the lack of capacity of the institutions. So as, the representative from ICC shared, sometimes our police, there are so many, they don't have enough information and so forth. So we thought that capacity can be defined in so many different ways. It could be human resource, it could be the information needed in terms of books and other knowledgeable ways. So we saw that resource mobilization could be a way of improving the capacity for the institutions that are there to give us access to justice, as well as capacity building trainings for police and so forth. And as an action point, we thought we could develop mass interventions through the partnerships built from the coordinated efforts of the organizations that are present here today. That is the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I won't call for comments based on this presentation, but wait until All others have presented, and then maybe we can give additional comments. Yeah, can I have the second group? Just bring your laptop.
Our group had the following: targeted civic awareness, messages in simplified and localized language, the ones who are in the responsible is ICC, MHRC, ACB, MPS, Gender Justice Unit, CHR, Rego Aid, Civil Society, NICE, and community radios. On awareness, we emphasize more to say if we can also use community radios. And the time frame is 1 year. Resources, it's government resources, and even government budgets, or government or institution budget and proposals. The other issue was increased access to justice by reducing long distances, most especially in courts and police. We have judiciary, Malawi police, and we are saying, we're emphasizing on mobile courts in remote areas. Time frame is 1 year. Resources is government budgets. The last one is enforcement of discipline and professionalism in the Malawi Police Service and capacity building. We have the ICC, Malawi Police, and it's ongoing on time frame. And the budget, we are not sure, that's why there's nothing there. Thank you. Whether we advocate for it or not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Can I have the last group?
Thank you so much. For our group, I think we didn't finish the whole assignment, but the first barrier that we identified was communication barriers. And this is in regard to the policy and the legal framework of Malawi. So the first activity will be to translate the laws, and this translation should include the language itself. So I don't know how many languages we have in Malawi. We just have to choose 8 official. So that has to be done in 8 vernacular languages. But also think of using audio, having an audio, maybe a program or an app that can easily be accessed. But also think of the printing. It should be in large font, but also considering the other community that cannot read, cannot see. So also consider be it in Braille. And the second activity will be sensitization or popularizing the translated laws. And the sensitization or the popularization should include using the radio, all forms of IC materials, and also think of having working websites where people can access those translated laws, and also monitoring enforcement and use of the legal framework itself. So we're thinking after sensitization, then what? How do we know that it's being effective? We need to go monitor how it's being enforced. Firstly, those court users, if they are really enforcing the laws, but also the communities, if they are able to access and understand the laws. So on that one, lastly, we also want to have trainer of trainers on the same, so meaning that amongst our court users, either amongst the judge, the lawyers themselves, the magistrates, the police, even mafumu atu hakumudzi, mabwalo awaje, having TOTs. The second column was what? Okay, the recommendation, we need to link with other CSOs that are also already doing this work, especially the translation of the laws. At the moment, we have Malawi Human Rights Resource Center, so that we don't duplicate efforts. And also, in that way, we can also identify other gaps. But also consult Law Commission, Ministry of Justice, and other agents to identify who has done this job already to build from there. I think the time frame is from first week of November, and this should be ongoing. And then the second problem is the structural barriers and distance from service providers. The activity there, we want to lobby for accessible structures, enhance state actors and NGOs to conduct awareness on court cases that are not finalized, but also lobby for operational harmonization among actors. And recommendation there, maybe let's think of innovative ways of having these structures accessible. For instance, digitalized services, have toll-free lines, but also just posting, having websites and apps that, the community can use. But also let's use mobile courts. We know that this is an initiative of NGOs. We had discussed that what if the NGOs roll out their activities, but we said that NGOs will always be there. So there's also need to enhance partnership and collaboration there so that our state actors does not run out of, do not run out of resources. I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. I can see that there are some issues that have come from almost each presentation. So we have a rapporteur somewhere who is taking down notes and what we are discussing here, including what's being shared online. So this time, I just want to ask if you have some quick comments or contributions or additional issues that need to be taken into action as well, in addition to what has been shared. Do we have any additional comments? For those watching online, you can type your comments, we'll read them.
Just a quick response from those of us that are from the public sector. So every public sector institution has their own budget based on how much provision government has made. And we have individual action plans. So maybe the Gender and Justice Unit, as a coordinating institution for this action plan, may engage the individual institutions separately. Because we may end up here coming up with a different action plan that is inconsistent with what an institution has already planned based on the funding that they receive. But it would be better to start with the individual budgets that we have to see whether we have components of the things that we are discussing here, so that the action plan that we agree here is more realistic and easier to implement. So just an advice as we anchor this action plan to maybe engage with the individual institutions on what they have as a provision from the budgets. This is for those of us that are limited in terms of resources because we have government funded. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know if you want to respond to that. Okay, so we have a comment online from Mr. Stephen Ziovu. He says, my name is Stephen Ziovu, a doctoral candidate at the University of Pretoria. I'm researching on questions of access to justice for victims of sexual violence. Would like to propose continued lobbying for a DNA testing laboratory. I find the absence of collection of DNA samples and testing a huge gap in the prosecution of sexual crimes. and of course some other criminal cases. So thank you so much for that comment, Mr. Stephen. So on what has been raised, is there something that maybe Gender and Justice Unit may want to add or respond?
I think one of the things that we need to start working on as institutions and as players in Malawi is to stop also looking at engagement as a physical engagement only. And I think, and I say this from a perspective that I also realize as duty bearers, especially as government institutions, we struggle with being consulted virtually. And it is something that we need to start considering doing more, because it is a cost-effective way, because you can sit in your office, get consulted for an hour, and the person can move on. I think it is something we seriously need to start considering doing more, because it's a way of working nowadays in this digital space. It's value for money, it's sustainable. So yes, I think further engagements, but they might not be physical. They all might be virtual with the other institutional players. I think that was something we can put on the map.
Okay, thank you so much.
I would say that as Gender and Justice Unit, and I also agree with what he has said from the ICC. Also, it's also another request from us as ASOs that we also want to be engaged more in these spaces, especially that are also being done by the state institutions. In that way, we also come with our budgets, limitations, and then we can meet on the same place and discuss issues. Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to comment on radio programs. I heard a certain group was presenting on radio programs. They can also involve us, Office of the Ombudsman, because we also do similar programs on such.
Any other comment from the groups before we wind up? Do we have any comments online? Okay. All right. So silence for me, it means there's no comment. And we are coming to the end of our breakfast session today, stroke brunch session. But it was nice, and I think I've enjoyed it personally. But also on behalf of Gender and Justice Unity, I would like to thank you, our panelists, and thank you, our participants, both here physically and those online, for attending, and thank you so much also for the contributions. As said, this will be summarized and hopefully shared. At this point,
We'll share within two to 3 weeks.
okay, so that's a commitment. Between 2 to 3 weeks, what we have discussed here will be shared, so that we can also begin to do something about it. We don't have to wait for Gender and Justice Unit, I think, but there are certain things that even as individual organizations, we can begin to do something. May I invite the Deputy Director for Gender and Justice Unit to the front to help us, inviting others for the closing.
All right, thank you so much. This one not working? Okay, all right. That means I have a small voice. I have to scream. All right, thank you so much. So on behalf of Gender and Justice Unit, I call upon the ICC Commissioner to do the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Justice Intaba, all the panelists, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you all for taking time to grace this occasion. For our panelists and our moderator, it took a bit of time to do research and prepare for this meeting. For the Gender and Justice Unit, and all your partners, the resources that have been outlaid to have this auspicious meeting take place. We thank you all for all that effort making this meeting a possibility. When we met in March earlier this year at Ufulu Garden, it was indeed agreed that we will be meeting, making follow-ups on whatever agreements were made at that time. So thank you so much, the Gender and Justice Unit, for your promise coming with this follow-up meeting. So thank you so much, and extend that gratitude to all your partners as well. Some resolutions have been made, some engagements have been made, some interaction has been made. We all hope that all this will result in more efficiency and effectiveness on the part of us as the duty bearers in enhancing access to justice. On behalf of my duty bearer institutions, I would like to promise and undertake that within our respective means, we will try to implement whatever action plans are within our means, so that when we meet again in another follow-up meeting, we have positive progress reports to make. The aim of these meetings is not just to meet and have breakfast and have some engagement like we have just done, but at the end of it all, we would like to see the man on the street, the woman in the village have access to justice. That's what we want to have, and ultimately, it is my hope that whatever has been agreed in this meeting will go towards that particular target. Thank you so much, all of you, for sparing your time to attend this meeting, and thank you so much. I wish you all the best as you go back to your respective duty stations. Hope to see you again, and I wish you all the best as we implement whatever we have agreed. Thank you so much. May God bless you all.
Thank you. Shall we bow our heads and pray in closing? Father, we thank you this time of the day, that indeed as we'd asked you to be with us, so we've seen your faithful hand upon us in the deliberation of the proceedings in this place. And the Lord, even now as we've come to the end of this, as it's physically, but this is where we start as far as executing what we've discussed and agreed upon. Be with us as we journey to our different destinations till we meet again and engage again different fora. We thank you. Amen.